Geopolitics are in the driver's seat, and Wall Street doesn't like it. What is the real price that Germany will have to pay to throw off its fiscal straitjacket? Why is Canada smelling blood in this tariff showdown with Trump? What does the decision by OPEC Plus to increase oil production say about the timing of an attack on Iran's nuclear weapons program? How should you be investing your money right now? As you know, I've been predicting since the start of the year that bonds will outperform stocks in 2025, at least on a risk-adjusted basis. For all of January and the first half of February, the market went against me as stocks outperformed bonds. It was not until the third week of February that the market started to come my way. Since then, the stock market has sold off while the bond market has rallied. With most of the post-US election gains of S&P 500 having been wiped out, is the outperformance of bonds set to continue, or will we see a rebound in stocks? I am not ready to double down on my position, but my conviction that heightened policy uncertainty will be a huge drag on the global economy remains high. My pessimism is founded principally on my concern that not only geopolitical uncertainty will not be resolved anytime soon, but that things might have to get a lot worse before they get better. The night is darkest just before the dawn, wrote the 17th century English historian Thomas Fuller. The stock market thought it saw light at the end of the tunnel earlier this week. Three pieces of news lightened the gloomy mood on Wall Street. The first was the news that Germany decided to throw off its fiscal straitjacket. The second piece of news was the decision by Trump to delay the new tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada for the U.S. automakers. Finally, the market was cheered by the news that OPEC Plus will proceed with its planned production increase in April. The stock market rebounded and the bond market sold off on these pieces of news. The market wants to believe that Germany, the third largest economy in the world, will finally emerge from its economic stagnation. Likewise, many people want to believe that the falling stock market is forcing Trump to rethink his tariffs. The market saw lower oil price as the icing on the cake. While I can see some logic in the way the market has processed the news, I think the market runs the danger of jumping the gun. In geopolitics, things are not always as they seem. And let me tell you why. You may recall that before the German elections last month, I said that any outcome that will result in the Green Party being part of the new coalition government should be viewed as a negative for Germany and for Europe. My reasoning was that the Greens' open war on fossil fuels and against Russia over the past 3 years has driven up energy prices for Germany, thus making German manufacturing uncompetitive. This has been the main factor behind Germany's economic stagnation. For a few days after the election, it looked like the Greens would soon lose their influence on German policymaking. The fact that the BSW, or far-left party, fell just short of the 5% electoral threshold meant that CDU, CSU, and SPD would have enough seats to form a coalition government without the Greens. Then, the CDU, CSU, and SPD decided this week to submit a motion to the outgoing parliament next week to amend the German constitution that would allow defense expenditure above 1% of GDP to be exempt from debt brake rules. But for this motion to pass, it would need a two-thirds majority in the Bundestag. With the AfD, the left party, and the FDP very likely to vote against the motion will require the full support of the Greens to succeed. I think it is safe to assume that the Greens will exact a high price for its support. Before the election, Friedrich Merz, the leader of the CDU, vowed to build 50 gas-fired power plants to lower energy prices in Germany. It is safe to assume that a big part of the 500 billion euro spending program on infrastructure that he announced earlier this week involves revolving fossil fuel as a major energy source. I suspect he will be forced to scale back his ambition in order to buy the support from the Greens to increase defense spending. I cannot help but see the outcome of the German elections as negative for the German economy and European markets. The German election has strengthened the Russia hawks in Germany. This will likely prolong the war in Ukraine, as more German money will be going into Ukraine to keep Kiev in the fight. This is setting Germany and Europe on a collision course with Trump, who is determined to end the war quickly. One likely consequence is that Europe will be less willing to cut a deal with Trump to avoid an all-out trade war. Given the U.S. is now Germany's largest export market, a trade war between Europe and the U.S. would hit Germany especially hard. DAX is trading at an all-time high. I confess that I'm confounded by the bright light that the market sees in Germany's future right now. All I see in my crystal ball is a prolonged war in Ukraine, trade war with the U.S., and continued high relative energy prices. This brings me to the U.S. Trump said at his joint session address to Congress this week that he has accomplished more in 43 days than most administrations accomplish in 4 years or 8 years for that matter. Whether this claim is overstated or not is not important. It is a fact that the number of migrants caught illegally crossing the U.S.-Mexico border fell in February to the lowest in decades. There's no denying that in a short space of time, Trump has succeeded in focusing the attention of Americans on the wastefulness of government spending. Trump got TSMC to agree to investing $100 billion in the U.S. this week, and is close to getting Ukraine to turn over to the U.S. 50% of its natural resources. Trump likes to play hardball and to move fast. But so far, this has not been working in his dealings with trading partners. In his first term, at least Trump waited until after his tax reform was passed before launching his trade war. This time, he jumped right into the trade war with all guns blazing. And while the trade war in his first term primarily targeted China, this time around, everyone, adversaries and allies alike, are in his crosshairs. If there's any grand strategy behind what he's doing, it is not obvious. When you pick a fight with everyone at the same time, you risk giving others a reason to join forces against you. When Justin Trudeau showed up last weekend at the Ukraine summit in London, it was clear which side he was picking in the transatlantic rift. It is very telling that Trudeau reportedly declined Trump's offer earlier this week to compromise on the tariff. With the U.S. stock market tanking, the Canadians can smell blood. Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, Canada's most populous province, put it bluntly. This is what he said. Zero tariffs or nothing. This attack was not started by our country. This was started by President Trump. He decided to declare an economic war against our country and our province, and we're going to hold strong. Canada and other countries might think that if they can hold out against Trump's tariff threats long enough, he will back down. It is safe to assume that nothing will give Trudeau greater satisfaction than to see Trump back down. But as the Chinese say, the one who rides the tiger cannot get off easily. Trump cannot back down without suffering a huge blow to his credibility abroad and at home. And his trade war has only just got started. On March 12th, his steel and aluminum tariff will go into effect. On April 2nd, his reciprocal tariff will go into effect, as will his car tariffs. This is even before we get to his tariffs on semiconductors and pharmaceutical products. Trump should have played the divide and rule strategy from the get-go. But it may be too late. I think the likes of Canada, European Union, and China will find strength in numbers. If they decide not to budge, others might also decide to sit on the fence. Can the U.S. stock market survive until Trump backs down? I don't think so. Trump said this week, no pain, no gain. It is very clear that he understands what is at stake here. He has no choice but to bite the bullet here, in my humble opinion. I suspect his pain threshold is higher than what the stock market thinks. We will know he's there when he fires Howard Lutnick, his Secretary of Commerce. What about the decision this week by OPEC Plus to increase production in April? It is true that an output hike was always part of the plan, but the plan was conditioned on price stability. And price stability did not include oil price below $70 a barrel. I don't believe for a minute that an output increase is in the economic interest of either Saudi Arabia or Russia, the two biggest producers within OPEC+. This means there's something else going on. I see it as a sign that Trump is getting closer to giving Israel the green light to attack Iran's nuclear weapons program. I see it as a sign that OPEC+, in response to U.S. demand, is preparing to step up production to offset a likely drop-off of Iranian oil exports. I see it as a sign that Putin is willing to turn a blind eye to what will happen to Iran in exchange for Trump's concessions over Ukraine. I don't have any inside information, but my hypothesis is at least consistent with all the facts on the table, including Lavrov's visit to Tehran last week. That could be a last-ditch attempt by the Russians to prevent an attack on Iran. But Iran has been working towards a bomb for the past 20 years. They are so very close to the finish line that it is difficult to see them giving it up. If I'm right, geopolitical risk premium in oil price is too low. I'm not saying that oil price will go to $100 or even $90, but I can see it go back to the mid-80s if Iran's exports of 1.8 million barrels per day takes a big hit. No pain, no gain. A global geopolitical realignment is underway. My pessimism about the global economy in 2025 is a bet that the transition will be neither easy nor smooth. I said in an earlier video that the German economy has been collateral damage of U.S. foreign policy under both Trump 1.0 and Biden. The German reaction to Trump 2.0 so far suggests that Germany and Europe have not learned their lesson. I think Trump's impatience to roll out his trade war will be disruptive to both the U.S. and the global economy. Trump said that he was saved by God to make America great. History tells us that political leaders with divine affinity have a tendency to overreach. Trump is a survivor because he adapts, but the stock market will not wait until he does. I think the next 45 days of Trump's second term will be more challenging than the first 45 days, especially after the Supreme Court's decision to reject Trump's request to freeze foreign aid that will set a precedent that will slow down his drive to cut spending. In a way, Iran is the lowest lying fruit for Trump, the simplest problem to solve. Destroying Iran's nuclear weapons program will help make the world safer in the future, but in the short term, it will no doubt contribute to higher policy uncertainty and volatility. Yes, I think the outperformance of bonds over stocks is not over yet. Thank you for listening.